I want you to guess how quickly somebody makes a first impression of a speaker. How many seconds do you think it takes? If there's anyone around you, feel free to ask them what they think. 15 seconds. That's pretty darn fast, which means not a lot of substance is going into this assessment. It's pretty much spot on attire, maybe how you're carrying yourself, and other nonverbals. So, as we mentioned in the last video, nonverbal messages play a very powerful role, which is why we're revisiting that for a little quick discussion here about delivery. Now, vocals are important too. You don't want to neglect that just because nonverbals are so strong when it comes to public presentation. We'll be talking about both here. So I've made two little charts here of vocal and nonverbal elements you will want to pay particular attention to in our coming weeks as you prepare your speeches. On the vocal side, very quickly, we have enunciation and pronunciation. They sound somewhat similar but are different. Enunciation, of course, is the clarity with which you speak your words, and pronunciation is saying those words the proper conventional way. We have volume, so how loud or softly you talk, and you can make that of a variety. Essentially, you don't always want to speak at the same level. Rate, so how fast you are talking, how slow you are talking. Pitch, so the vocal variety or inflection. Pauses, so taking time to space things out. You can even use pauses, longer ones on purpose for effect. And then stressing certain words, how you emphasize them, that can add passion and punch at certain areas of the speech that you would like to highlight. Then we have nonverbals, movement, walking. Yes, you can actually walk. I encourage that in most speeches, unless you are tethered to a podium for PA reasons for a microphone, so you're speaking in a very large space. Walking actually is a good thing as long as that doesn't turn into pacing. Pacing, of course, can be a distraction. Pivoting, so when you stop walking for a while, you can pivot your upper body so you're still incorporating movement. Your stance is important. A confident stance versus one of less confidence. So maybe slumped shoulders would be less confidence, and you want to stand usually with your legs about shoulder width apart and straight up but comfortably, so you look confident, you know what you're doing. Facial expressions, of course, using this part of our body to convey all sorts of emotions. Eye contact, so we know, don't be a Nixon. We want to be sweeping the room with our eyes. If you are in a situation in the future, which you will be eventually, with a live audience, for now though, that would primarily be looking at the camera. Gestures to help underscore certain points, so arm movement. Attire, and we'll talk a little more about attire here in a second. And then proxemics, which may be a new term. It's one not introduced in our textbook, but one I want to talk about because it's important. You may guess its meaning based on the sound of the word. It sounds like proximity. So it is the way a speaker uses space to their advantage, which means walking, taking up the space, moving from one side of the room to address this part of the audience, but not just solely focusing eye contact on that side. If you're over here for a while, it's good to pivot and make eye contact with the rest of the room. Then maybe you take a couple more steps, you go back to the middle, or you go to the other side of the room and do the same thing. A good time to incorporate that movement, that walking, and is in between main points when you're transitioning. That helps to reinforce non-verbally what it is you're doing with the actual content in the speech. So as you're transitioning, say from point 1 to point 2, take a few steps maybe from the middle to just a couple steps over, remain within the camera shot, of course. And then you can also move toward the audience and away from the audience. So mixing that up is all providing just visual interest and a dynamic that will make your viewers more involved. So when a speaker takes up space like that, when you appear to control the room, it's just one of those psychological triggers that happens where we instantly think you're confident, you know what you're doing, you're taking up space, you appear large, you appear to rule that space, and so we feel better about you as a speaker, like you know what you're doing. Finally, then, a quick word on attire. This is covered in the syllabus, but it's a good time just to reiterate. We want to avoid distracting clothes, and even though we are at home and it's easy to throw on whatever, we want to treat this as a professional experience. It will reflect in your delivery. It's that sort of mental, body, physical connection there. So when you put the polish on yourself, the way you present yourself, the polish is going to come across in the way you present. Avoid those distracting clothing items that are listed in the syllabus. If you have any questions about any of that, of course, feel free to reach out. So at this point, we have a few activities for you. In this module, under this clip, we have your delivery activity number 1, and that is a link to the very first presidential debate in the 1992 race, and that is between Perot, or actually, I'll back up. I'll describe a little bit more about why this was such a unique clip and why I picked it. It was actually a pretty exciting time for presidential politics because you had a viable independent candidate. That usually doesn't happen. We have Republican, we have a Democrat, and that is usually it. You have to have a certain percentage threshold in the polls to make a national debate stage, which this individual happened to do for quite a while. So you have not just 2 people, but now 3 to compare side to side with not only their message, their vocals, but also their nonverbals. So our 3 candidates in the order of their appearance, we have that independent Ross Perot. Then in the middle, the second speaker who would then go on to win, the Democrat Bill Clinton. And third, we have the then incumbent Bush Sr., George H.W. Bush. So this is the first question I'm going to have you watch. Click on the Listening with Our Eyes Activity 92 presidential debate clip, cue it up to 240, and then watch it, but watch it on mute. So only the nonverbals until about the 6-minute mark. That'll get you a good shot of all 3 candidates speaking. And then I want you to make some notes on the nonverbals. Who seems confident, comfortable, likable? What sorts of emotions and thoughts are evoked with the nonverbal language that you're seeing there? Once you've done that, replay the same segment with the sound on. Now that you hear their message, does that change any of your earlier assessment about what you thought of them as a candidate? So it's a pretty fun activity there. Second activity, I want you to look at some examples of proxemics, and actually there are proxemic fails. These are very, very short clips, all under a couple, well, one is under a minute, the other one's a couple minutes. And it's fun to watch candidates see bad use of their movement in a public speaking situation. So you can see the way proxemics are done, not to the greatest success with those clips.